Mr. Speaker, I vote to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to make provision about the collection and publication of data on immigration status, nationality and country of birth of certain persons relating to users of certain public services, claimants of certain benefits, the prison population and arrests, to require that such data is published at least once per calendar year, to require the Secretary of State to review the quality and consistency of any such data collected and published, and for connected purposes. I firmly believe that for nearly 3 decades, migration to this country has been too high and remains so. Every election-winning manifesto since 1974 has promised to reduce migration. And yet, since 1997, with the unsurprising exception of 2020, net migration has run at more than 100,000 people per year. Like governments before it, the last government promised to reduce migration. As my right honourable friend, the member for North West Essex, has said, it failed to do so. To paraphrase my honourable friend, the member for West Suffolk, mass migration is the single biggest broken promise in British politics and the single biggest reason that trust in our politics is in such short supply. But whatever we believe, it is an objective fact that our national conversation around immigration is often hampered by shockingly poor data, when that data even exists at all. My honourable friend, the member for Harborough, Oadby and Wigston, has worked for years to highlight this problem. As the Migration Observatory, a group of academics at the University of Oxford, noted just last week, migration data is plagued by gaps and quality issues which reflect structural and long-term problems with data silos, disorganised databases and failures to keep complete records. All in all, the Migration Observatory identified 10 areas of public policy which a lack of high-quality migration data is currently undermining. All of this starts with the fundamental question: how many people are in this country and who are they? And the truth is that we do not know. Remarkably, the United Kingdom does not have a proper system of entry and exit checks. We do not record the number of people actually arriving in the country or the number of people actually leaving. The migration figures that we see published every year are just best guesses.
Exactly.
When people do arrive here, we don't have comprehensive data on exactly where they've come from or where in the country they might be moving to. Our best guess for this comes once a decade at the census. But given the scale and pace of migration since the last census in 2021, this information will now almost certainly be hopelessly out of date. Recently, we saw the Office for National Statistics issue new figures on net migration for 2024. Using these new methods, the ONS now thinks that emigration of British nationals had been underestimated by 2/3 of a million people between 2021 and 2024. For years, policy in this country was made on the basis of the old guess, which showed British national immigration running at below average. These new figures invite serious questions about why so many British nationals, the vast majority of them young, are leaving this country. And yet, for years, the official data showed that there was no such problem, and so the conversation in this place never proceeded beyond the level of anecdote. When people do arrive here, we know far too little about them. We don't know the number of foreign criminals who've been awarded visas since 2021 or where they've come from. We don't have the full information on how many people move between the asylum system and the formal legal migration system. In the case of EU migrants, we don't know why these people are coming here or how many of them already have EU settled status. All of this concerns the flow of migrants coming to this country, not those already here. When it comes to assessing the contribution of migrants who are already here, our understanding is even worse. In 2020, data about income tax and national insurance contributions broken down by nationality was discontinued. We have no such data by visa type. We have little data on the earnings or employment rate of migrants by immigration status, visa type, or nationality following the collapse of the Labour Force survey. We don't know the immigration status of benefits claimants for benefits other than universal credit, which makes up about half of our working age benefit spend. When it comes to universal credit, we don't have detailed nationality data on claimants. We don't know how much migrants are costing this country in legal aid or in translation services. We don't know what proportion of eligible foreign nationals are receiving pension benefits. We don't know the total cost in any given year to the NHS or to state education of migrants' pre- and post-indefinite leave to remain status. We don't have full official figures on the total number of foreign nationals in social housing or where those in social housing were born. So without data on what migrants are contributing to the public purse and what they might be costing, we cannot possibly have a full and informed conversation about the relative impact of migration on the taxpayer. In turn, we cannot make fully informed decisions about who should come here from where, and under what conditions. Of course, fiscal contributions are not the only important measure. When it comes to data on migrant crime, the picture is just as patchy as my right honourable friend, the member for Newark, has repeatedly highlighted. While we do have, albeit outdated, figures on the prison population by nationality, we still do not have full official data on the number of people arrested by nationality, the immigration status of prisoners, or the number of people sentenced but not imprisoned by nationality. The indicative data that we do have about migrant crime has been obtained via Freedom of Information Act requests and is often incomplete or disputed. Because it is not released on a consistent basis, it is also very hard to assess over time. Yet in the absence of any alternative, this is the basis on which we must conduct the debate. We have no information at all on the nationality or immigration status of those referred to prevent, a glaring gap in our ability to combat extremism. And all this, everything that I've said, relates only to the UK's legal population. We do not have, and have not had for some time, a credible estimated figure about the number of people who are in this country illegally. There has been no official attempt to combine data sets we could use, utility usage, health restrictions, census data, grocery purchases, to establish this number. So we cannot know what pressure this might be putting on public services or on infrastructure, and we cannot properly assess how much money needs to be invested into our border force and immigration enforcement. We don't have any information about internal deportation targets within immigration enforcement and border force and what proportion of those targets are being met. We don't know what happens to asylum seekers who've been refused asylum but have not been returned to their home countries. We don't know how often and in what context human rights-based claims are made to thwart removal and how often those claims are successful, particularly as we don't yet have access to the judgments of the First-Tier Immigration Tribunal. How can we possibly have a well-informed conversation about illegal migration without a full understanding of the facts?
Yeah.
Those of us who wish to end the era of mass migration are often the loudest voices in calling for more data. Yet those who believe that this period of mass migration has been a good thing for our country should be the biggest supporters of more comprehensive and accurate data on the impact of migration.
Yeah.
We are often told, including in this House, that the British people have been misled or misinformed about the true impact of immigration on our country, that mass migration has in fact been better for this country than many believe. If that is the case, then let us see it in the data. If, as many members on the benches opposite and to my left may claim, the majority of migrants are in net fiscal positive, then let us see it in the data. If, in fact, migrants are no more likely to commit crime than British nationals, then let us see it in the data. Based on the indicative data that we do have, I believe this is exceedingly unlikely. But until we have access to the full facts, the conversation about migration in this place and across our country will necessarily fall short. There is no good reason to oppose a better informed national conversation around immigration. More data and evidence would allow us to make better decisions about who should be allowed to come to and stay in our country and in what numbers. It would allow us to truthfully assess the impact of different migrant groups, moving us on from generalizations about the whole of migration and towards a more productive conversation about the relative contributions of specific migrant groups by nationality and visa type. And most importantly of all, it would provide transparency for the British people and enable more detailed scrutiny of any government's policy on migration. In countries like Denmark, where migrant contribution data is published regularly, the government trusts its citizens to consider the data, consider their policies, and, in turn, to make up their own minds about whether or not they support the action being taken. After decades of broken promises, this is the very least the British people deserve: the right and ability to scrutinise in full the migration policy of their elected government. I sincerely hope that ministers in the Home Office and across government will recognise this and will work with the ONS to produce a more comprehensive and accurate data set in the years ahead. Immigration policy cannot be set in isolation. The people living in this country are this country, and so the flow of people coming here necessarily has an impact on every area of our lives. Governments do not exist independently of the nations that they govern, and nations do not exist independently of the people who constitute them. They are wholly and entirely a result of those people, their collective contributions, and their collective failings. Immigration policy, therefore, is upstream of our public finances, the health of our public services, the cost of housing, the quality of our schools, the population of our prisons, the cohesion of our communities, and the strength of our democracy. The very least that we can do when discussing an issue of such enormous importance is to ensure that public policy is properly informed by the full facts.
The honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. The question is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Who will prepare to bring in the bill?
Ian O'Brien, Chris Philp, Claire Coutinho, Matt Vickers, Sarah Ball, Lewis Cocking, Jack Rankin, Harriet Cross, Peter Bedford, Andrew Snowden, Bradley Thomas, and myself, Mr. Speaker.
Katie Lam.
Data Publication and Quality, Immigration, Nationality and Country of Birth Bill.
Second reading what day?
Friday, the 16th of January.
Friday, the 16th of January.